One of the very, very, very few reality TV shows I give a shit about, and on top of that, the only reality TV competition show I give a shit about, is Hell's Kitchen. By the way, season 24, the latest season, is currently airing. Battle of the States. Chris from New Jersey, I'm rooting for you, even though you're probably not going to win, but you're the second best person to root for, considering the chef from New York fucking sucked. Anyway, sometimes I like to go on the Hell's Kitchen subreddit when a season is airing to see what other fans are talking about. Sometimes I like to read discussions about past seasons as well, and this is where I discovered that the winner of season 21, who is probably my favorite recent winner of the show, is a Republican, or at the very least has some very unsavory political views, more than likely. Because someone shared that they, I think, follow Matt Walsh on social media and other pretty repugnant political figures of the like. And then I was like, oh, that's really unfortunate. But also at the same time, honestly, I really didn't care that much. This is someone who I was rooting for on a reality TV cooking show. A place where your political views doesn't really factor in at all. And I was thinking, why should I care exactly that an individual on a TV show who I'm never going to interact with, don't follow any of their social media, don't keep up with at all, has some unsavory political views. I'm just like, well, that sucks, and I go about my day. I don't give a fuck who they're following on social media. It's just a lot of unnecessary mental energy, in my opinion, and seems like you're actively looking for something to get mad at. Take the Sydney Sweeney controversy from this past summer, when she did that creepy, I got good genes, American Eagle ad. Yes, the commercial was problematic, with its references to eugenics, and, we're under a far-right presidential administration. And then her party affiliation was dug up, and apparently she's registered Republican, and people were using that as the smoking gun to say, see, I told you she's a piece of shit. Oh wow, a super rich, super famous, privileged white person has dumb fuck political views? Who could have seen that coming? I have never given a single shit about Sydney Sweeney. All I know about her is that she was in Euphoria, a show that I really didn't care for. She's in the first season of White Lotus, a show I do like, and she's got quite the pair of ballistics too. But yeah, never thought about her one way or the other, and I'm sure a lot of other people are in the same boat as me, considering that several movies she has starred in this year where I assume she doesn't take her clothes off are flopping. What I'm getting at is I really don't fucking give a shit about the political views of individuals, especially famous people, who aren't known for their political views in the first place. Oh, but I bet you wouldn't be saying the same thing if, for example, Sydney Sweeney was this bleeding heart progressive instead. Yes, I would say the same thing. And to prove it, apparently Imagine Dragons are pretty vocally pro-Palestine. I think their music is still the most boring, vacuous shit I have ever heard, but hey, credit where credit is due. That is still not going to make me want to listen to their music. And here's the inverse. I can listen to music artists who have political views I don't like. Bob Dylan is one of my favorite music artists of all time. I only finally listened to his whole discography last year. He is, or at least was at one point, a Zionist. Probably still is, honestly. He has a song from the 80s called Neighborhood Bully, where he likens Israel as an innocent party being unfairly picked on by the neighborhood bully, which is Palestine. Now that's a very gross and frankly juvenile way to frame the conflict, but even still, that blemish doesn't deter my enjoyment from the songs and albums that have zero mention of Israel, which is a vast majority of them. And it's a topic he hasn't brought up in decades, so who the fuck knows what he thinks now. But I thought you were Mr. I don't accept discriminatory opinions from anyone. Are you backtracking on that now? I even made a video almost 6 years ago, back in 2020. Yes, 2020 is almost 6 years ago now. What the fuck? Anyway, making that exact point. Yes, I don't accept if someone says they don't like racial minorities, or LGBTQ plus people, or other marginalized groups of the sort, and advocate for stripping rights away from groups of people they don't like, or have other very similarly repugnant views of the sort. But that line of thinking comes into play when it comes to people I can selectively choose to be in my life. I've cut off several people in my life, online and real life, for political disagreements, and really, disagreements regarding basic human rights shouldn't even be deemed as political disagreements, but welcome to the fucked up climate we live in. Oh, you just want to be around people who always agree with you 24/7 on every single subject. Okay, here is my incredibly high standards that are so hard to meet when it comes to me befriending you. Don't be a hateful bigot. Oh, very high bar, or at least it is for so many people, unfortunately. And believe it or not, I am fine with genuine ignorance. Like, for example, I have this friend in real life who was a lot of fun to get high with, but that's neither here nor there, who one time said, and I don't even remember why this was brought up, but anyway, I am perfectly fine with trans people. But I don't think it's for the best that we let little kids medically transition. And I'm like, okay, well that barely happens anyway, and if a minor does medically transition, that is usually after rigorous consultation and discussions with medical professionals. It's not like a 5-year-old boy can walk into a clinic and say, I feel like a girl, and then right away they're on HRT. And the rate of minors, especially if they're not teenagers yet, medically transitioning is already incredibly low. And we're talking like low thousands per year. Hardly this sweeping epidemic we need to have this serious discussion over, and this typically follows years of socially transitioning, like growing your hair out, shaving body hair. And I remember he was like, oh, that makes sense, but I still don't really like the idea of little kids medically transitioning, and I was like, okay, fair enough, whatever, you believe what you like. What I'm getting at here is the guy isn't an overt bigot, just misinformed, and someone who doesn't really give that much of a shit about politics to begin with, and I am fine with his presence despite that. Not everyone I meet and befriend is going to be some die-hard leftist, and I'm fine with that, so long as, again, they're not an overtly hateful piece of shit. Though, when it comes to that, I do have an uncle who lives out in Jersey who is a die-hard Trumper, and a few months ago I stumbled onto his Twitter when I looked up my mom's last name, and let's just say he's posted some very ugly things about trans people and other marginalized groups of the sort, and I'll just leave it at that. Every time I see him, I don't bring up politics, because I only see him a handful of times each year. He's not someone who I'm insanely close to, someone who I always have to see, so I don't really see the point in getting in a heated political argument with him, when again, I barely have to deal with him. Same thing for most of the people on my father's side of the family. My father is incredibly based when it comes to politics, but most of his family, not so much. A lot of them are just like my uncle from Jersey, die-hard Trumpers, and hold a lot of very, very unsavory views in general, but I hardly ever see them, so when I do see them, I am nice to them. And don't get me wrong, this is purely how I am when it comes to people who have ugly politics who I don't have to deal with all that much, or in the case of public figures, don't have to ever deal with at all. And this isn't some kind of lecture fest about how you always have to be so nice and civil towards hateful pieces of shit, especially if you are within a marginalized group of people who they are discriminating against. No, I hate that shit too. I'm just saying, I don't have the mental energy to get worked up over every single instance of someone having shitty politics. Unless, of course, they're a politician or some kind of public figure within the realm of politics, or someone contributing to actual harm in general, or someone in my circle, in my personal life, or online life. But no, contrary to what some people may believe, one's political opinions is not the only thing I fixate on when it comes to whether or not I think they're a decent person. And when it comes to people who I will either never speak to or barely associate with, out of sight, out of mind. And public figures who are not within the realm of politics, who have unsavory political opinions and aren't actively using their platforms to promote harm, also something I really don't give a shit about. I'm not saying their viewpoints can't ever be criticized or challenged, I'm just saying I personally don't give a shit. I'm going to encounter people who don't hold the exact same viewpoints as me, and believe it or not, I can live with that, and befriend them so long as they're not an absolutely vile person. Again, such an impossibly high bar, right? Anyway, that's all I have to say. Bye-bye.